Sabrina 70s comic, issue 48. In the first story, Sabrina tells Harvey she's trying to undo a wire puzzle Ambrose gave her. It's so interesting to see teenage characters doing stuff they never do today because they have video games, videos, and the internet. Ambrose did it easily, and it's supposed to come apart in the middle, but it's not so simple. Nothing simple for her. I'm guessing Harvey will have an easy time with it because he's a guy, and it's a 70s comic. Hilda does it well right away. Well, Ambrose was already familiar with the puzzle and good at it, and he's an adult, so it stands to reason that Hilda would be too. He would have taught her. Or it's because Sabrina's a ditz. Harvey confidently wants to try it himself. But we don't get to see how he do, sadly. Because Hilda uses magic, so instead it's impossible for him to do it. Then Hilda uses magic so that Sabrina can undo it right away. And Harvey desperately wants to do the same thing, but can't because of Hilda. That's repetitive and predictable. Sabrina wants to go for that soda now, so she uses magic to help him, and he's baffled when Hilda undoes Sabrina's spell. Hilda undoes the puzzle with magic, and Harvey starts hitting the grass and crying when he's a teenager, and the story ends with Sabrina saying, "Tell Ambrose not to bring any more puzzles home." And Hilda's like, "If you ask me, the biggest puzzle around here is Harvey." That made me smile, actually. She has her bad moments, but sometimes she's cathartic. In the next story, Sabrina tells Hilda she failed to sell anything to raise money to buy a gown for the dance. Hilda says she should just zap it up, and Sabrina says she wants to do it the right way. Well, considering that she lectured Hilda about having a product without paying for it, her zapping up a clone of the gown would be having a product without paying for it. So it makes sense that now she'd not want to use magic. She doesn't want to cheat the store out of her money if it's possible for her to buy the dress instead of impossible. But she doesn't explain this, so it just makes her look like she's too stupid to think of that. She's embarrassed that everyone predictably closed the door on her face. Hilda says that she just doesn't have any confidence in herself. Since when? She's not very smart and she keeps making the same mistakes. So she's confident that she's not making mistakes and is not going to make a mistake. Hilda tells her that the first rule of selling is to never take no for an answer. She must have learned that from observing all those door-to-door salesmen. She really loves Sabrina if she's not mad at her for being no better than them, and in fact encourages it. She asks for the case and wants to show her how to make a sale. She shows up at someone's door and they comment on her outfit, assuming that she's trick-or-treating, and tells her to get lost. Hilda doesn't give up and says that she's selling cosmetics, so she's laughed at. The woman says, "You? Selling beauty aids? You gotta be joking. If you use them, I can see that they don't work very well." I don't blame her, but she went too far by the end, saying that she looks like a disaster. But to be fair, she thinks she's just another door-to-door salesman, and people always treat them like shit for making them walk all the way to their door just to have to say no to avoid wasting money. I guess, when she looks at Hilda, she sees her as more detailed than we do. 'Cause it's the shape of her face that's the problem. Cosmetics wouldn't fix that. Hilda rings the doorbell and says that she's not allowed to take no for an answer. I thought she'd use magic here, but instead she gets splashed with a bucket of water. Did she prepare that bucket of water in the second it took for her to... Was it already right there? Why didn't she splash her right away? Hilda's called thick-headed. She threatens her. I couldn't help but giggle at the mere mortal saying, "Don't you threaten me," like she thinks Hilda's a child. So Hilda uses magic to split her tree into two. And I guess making the woman's hair stand on end permanently was also part of her spell. So she gets some sales out of that, as I wonder if, well, maybe the reason Della won't nag her is because, well, one, the story ended, but two, no one would believe this woman and would just assume someone used a chainsaw on the tree when they remember it. I'll never know if Sabrina was able to afford the gown she wanted. Maybe she did zap it up for herself, or Hilda did. At first she made a terrible salesman, but then she used her magic. I'm proud of her for not using it against her like I thought. And she probably figured that brainwashing her would be cheating because it'd be so easy that it wouldn't prove her point to Sabrina. That wouldn't be convincing, it'd be forced. It's a pretty brilliant story. Of course a witch would act like this as a door-to-door salesman. And it's pretty inventive that she's being a door-to-door salesman. In the next page, Hilda says that the frantic pace of modern society is getting her down, that she's stuck in traffic. I've never seen her behind the wheel before. I guess this is why. And if she's stuck in traffic, that's not really a frantic pace. That's a very slow pace. She says she's got to go to the one place she can relax. And I wish there was a text box saying that there was a time skip, because I assumed she teleported here at first. She goes to an amusement park and gets a ticket for a ghost ride, and loves being with her own kind, even though she's not a ghost or skeleton, but she does love scaring people. At least she's an engaging and memorable character. She's easily my favorite stereotypical witch, but I've only got 5 other characters from other series to compare to. I hate the Witch Princess, her niece, Witchy, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Wendy. At least Hilda has a soft side and lives in modern day. In the next page, because Sabrina has trouble landing on her flying broom, all of a sudden Della said she's gonna fail her flying test. I guess this took place before Sabrina mastered flying with the broom. Surprisingly, Della's forward-minded enough to say she could use any device to fly, and yet she's always telling her to be evil? Sabrina says that she'll use her skateboard and does a landing in style. Of course, because she was standing up and her hands were free. I'm glad she used that for once, and not a motorcycle or vacuum. In the next page, Hilda complains that she put a quarter in the soda machine and nothing came out. She kicks it because she's mad and wants to take it out on the machine, and out of nowhere, an extendable fist comes out and hits her. And Sabrina looks upset and says that they're building them to fight back. That would never happen. This would only make sense if Sabrina was the one responsible, because otherwise they get sued. It could kill some people. But I'm still smiling at it. What does the story title have to do with anything? Every story was supposed to be set in modern times. In the next page, Sabrina asks her aunt if they're ready to see what she's wearing to the beach this summer, and because it's skimpy, Hilda gives her the money for a new one, and tries to trick her by calling it an old swimsuit. Then it turns out that she didn't know it was brand new because she thought she outgrew it. In the next story, Hilda's positive for once, saying that it's a beautiful day because it's sunny out. Didn't she appreciate a storm once? I guess she realized sunny days are nice too, and that makes more sense. Hilda wants to do something outdoors. And Sabrina tells her that Harvey's taking her out for a ride on the seashore. I love how there's so much variety in the setting of their dates. It's more creative than them just going to restaurants to eat. Hilda's jealous of Sabrina for having a boyfriend. And then Ambrose tells her that he's taking his lady friend Wanda boating in the park. Wanda would be a brilliant name for a witch, and she certainly looks like one. How did he meet Wanda? So why didn't Ambrose make sure he kept his last girlfriend? I guess Ambrose himself got fed up with Matilda. Hilda decides to zap up a boyfriend. What took so long? Somehow, even though he's someone she zapped up to be her boyfriend, he doesn't like her and runs away screaming. She wonders if he assumed that she was gonna feed him to the pigeons in the park. I mean, he just became sentient. Why wouldn't he be an idiot? Or maybe this is a real person she teleported to herself from memory. She somehow believes there's only so much she can do with magic and gives up on him because he didn't have any taste. Why doesn't she cast a love spell? Sabrina does it way more often than she does. She's more experienced at magic than Sabrina. Then a purse snatcher runs past Hilda, so she uses magic to make him trip and jumps on him. She thanks her for recovering her money and offers to give her any reward she wants. And she says she'll bring him to the police station after they feed the pigeons in the park. And she's dragging him behind her. But it wouldn't make for a very satisfying date. Why wouldn't a villain use a love spell? She doesn't even suggest it and turn it down. I'm glad Dell didn't mock her for doing something good. I bet if, well, considering how stupid she is, maybe if someone got her purse back, she would yell at them. The first story is a repetitive and predictable one where Sabrina can't undo a wire puzzle, and we never get to see how Harvey would actually do because of Hilda's magic. At least the ending was funny. The second story is about Hilda trying to be a good salesman to teach Sabrina how to raise money for a dress. And at first she's just turned down and made fun of for her looks, until eventually she stops playing fair out of frustration and scares her with her magic, which gets her the money so she'd leave her alone. That ended up being funny too. I had this story since I was a kid. The final story is about Hilda wishing she had a date and she's in a good mood for once. And somehow the thought of using a love spell never occurs to her, and the boyfriend she zapped up doesn't like her. She would have done this a lot. She wouldn't make this mistake by this point. I wish she explained that she's against love spells, and yet she's okay with dragging a purse snatcher to the park for a date. He clearly wouldn't enjoy it. But I loved that she saved someone's purse. That made up for everything. Hilda's mad so often that it makes me appreciate her good moods.